Awesome. We'll get the meeting underway. Start with karakia. Takina te karakia. Paia te mataranga kia marama. Kia whai take nā mahi katoa. Tu maia, tu kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. Welcome everybody to the second Corporate Services Committee meeting of the Triennium. A few acknowledgements and welcomes to those who are joining us online or will be watching the live stream later on at your own time and leisure, and to all our councillors here frontside joining us online as well, staff in the building and online, and also to the new local democracy reporter. Welcome to the coast. If you would like to come forward and introduce yourself, you're welcome to do so. If you just want to come a little bit closer so you're thrown onto the screen. Yeah, another step over. Yeah, there you are.
Right, good everyone. I'm Bihan and I'm a local democracy reporter at the Grey Star over here. It's only been a week, it's a new role for me, and I'm really excited to get to meet all of you at some point. Yeah, so thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Everybody is here, so there's no apologies. We will pass on through that. Calling for any declarations of interest for the agenda today. There will be none. We'll move past public forums as there isn't any. There's no late items, so we'll scoot past that as well. Confirmation of the minutes for the 16th of December. They've been circulated. Any comments on the accuracy of those? Further on those, looking for a mover and a seconder, that they are a true and correct record. Colin, Peter, thank you very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Action list, and we have Joe to speak to the one action list item there, action 0076.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just acknowledging that this has been sitting around for a while, requesting that we do some further work on the lease status of council-owned land. Due to other work priorities at this stage, I had a conversation with the Chief Executive and we have agreed that it would be deferred for now. So it will remain as an action. However, we have been focusing on other work, noting that Colin and I are sort of shared responsibility for this.
Any questions or comments on that from the table? Looking for a mover and a seconder to receive the action list and information required there. Thank you. And Ellen, thank you very much. Chair's report. Probably remiss of me not to start with saying there's a lot going on locally here as well as all around the world. So probably worthwhile pausing and noting the loss of human life and the great impacts that are happening in other parts of the world at the moment, which still have big effects here to us locally. Want to thank the team for their ongoing work. We've got a lot of quarterly reports to receive and updates to have today. So wanted to acknowledge the work of our team and those who contract to our organisation for the continued work in that space. We've already noted it's the second meeting of this committee for the Triennium, and as there is lots of updates and reports to receive, that's about the extent of my report for today. Looking for a mover and a seconder on that. Colin, thank you. We will move into the reports. Chantal is going to speak to item 9.1, the quarterly investment portfolio update.
Morning, team. It's nice to be here. So unfortunately, JB Weir are unable to join us this morning, so the update for the markets will be limited to the paper. But we will have Miles O'Connor joining us from Bancorp, who will be able to give us a little bit more detail of what's going on in the world shortly. So overall, I take the paper as read. The net income received on both the main and catastrophe funds are lower than forecast for the half year to December. And as we know, markets are volatile and have an impact on what we earn. But I know that JB Weir are constantly looking at our portfolio and whether or not it meets our requirements, and we are comfortable that they are doing a good job for us. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from the table?
Just for the chair, just basically comment. I think the payment out for the blindfold at the moment. any sort of investment portfolio. I've heard.
Powerful summary there. Anything else from anyone else? No? Too easy. The recommendation is to receive the report and note the attachments. We've got a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Andy. Cool. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Moving into 9.2 quarterly treasury report. Miles O'Connor from Bancorp to present on this one. Great. Colin or Chantal, can I throw you in the Miles' absence?
Okay, sorry, I didn't realise that we hadn't managed to schedule Miles for the meeting. I'll take the report as read. We are within all our policy requirements, so we are fully policy compliant. And just noting that on the 30th of January, we had a short-term $3 million loan with LGFA that was rolled for a further 90-day term, which will mature on the 30th of April. And are there any questions?
Do you have any further comments to come?
We did meet with the Miles to go through, so we spent some time on it. And again, we're comfortable where we are.
Questions or comments from the panel? No?
Yep.
Yep.
Just with this short-term rollover, we've got some debt we're having grant shortly. I just want to know where it's coming from, because we have had budget before that we withdraw some of the investment fund to pay for it. I'm talking about the transit NZTA, the rate payback for some ratepayers in Trans Joseph. It's another few $100,000. So the best part of $1 million. So where are we going to be financing that payback in the two incidents without other ones, as it stands now with our working account? Must come from somewhere.
So, do you want to answer this one, Colin, or do you want me to?
If you can start, I'll close off.
Right. So within the long-term plan, we have some allowance in there to draw funds from our main JB Ware portfolio. So we just need to advise them of what we would like to draw down for this current financial year and when. Anything that is not listed in the long-term plan would need to be debt funded, and we have access to the best rates through LGFA if and when that happens.
On that response, and I thank you, Chantal, for that, we should plan ahead, shouldn't we? Because these are due. Well, they're going to be shortly. So we're going to debt fund it, or do we, when April the 30th comes around, do we hold back some of this? Don't we invest it? We've got to make a decision, because when it's due, it's due.
You got any further on the comment?
Well, what we can do is provide some planning across both the investment and the loan funding, and particularly strategic on that, how we see the next 6 months and into a year, and we'll try and do planning as well.
So when there's, for the chair, when the meeting's down Trans this week, the question's probably going to be asked from some of the ratepayers when they're going to get their money back. It's a hardy annual, and NZTA, the same site, their money's been held for quite some time now. You know, I'd like to get that back to them instead of us forever regurgitating the issue. Let's get it out of the way.
Can I just clarify
Oh,
that this paper that we're looking at now is to do with our LGFA debt, and the paper before with JB Ware was to do with our portfolio. So while they are connected, on this side we're talking about the debt, the other side we're talking about our assets held. I'd just like to reassure everybody that Council has access to funds, whether that be through lending, through LGFA, or through drawdown from the not from the catastrophe fund, from the main fund.
Thanks, Chantal.
Yeah, that was the question I had through the chair. That was the question. What's the time frame on a drawdown on the main cash fund? Is that a 10-day or 5-day?
It can be pretty quick. It just depends. I'd have to talk to JB Ware and they would look at which assets would be best to be sold down and most advantageous to the whole portfolio.
Yep.
Yep.
But I think from memory and past conversations, I think it's like a 10-day drawdown.
And if it is 10 days, just remember that we could potentially pull down funding from our GFA as a short-term loan, or even through our MOCL, which is our multi-option credit line facility through Westpac, and that's almost instantaneous, and then we could repay once we get funding from the main account from JB Ware.
Chantal, is that a revolving credit, is it?
Not a revolving credit, it's a credit facility which is I think about 3 million that we have sitting with Westpac should we need instant funds, access to funds. We do pay a fee for that line of credit over a year, but it's there to provide instantaneous access to cash in an event that we should need it.
And it can be paid back at any time.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
If that satisfies your questions there, Peter, fairly well covered in most spaces.
Yeah.
Is that rock that Peter's talking about, that's involved in the Brands rating scheme?
Correct.
Undertook.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a couple of comments here, councillors. So there are two main reasons why we draw on loans. One is absolutely legitimate reason, which is when we're meeting our local share capital investments in the flood schemes, which is all agreed with the community, and we draw a loan down with a payback period to fund their typically 40% contribution to that. And that's one reason why we draw down loans and we account for that in each of the buckets against the schemes. The second reason, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, that we've drawn down a loan is to see us through from a cash flow perspective, especially as we're nearing one of the 2 rate strikes for the year. So if we're getting a bit low on cash and we haven't had all the rating income yet, and we might bridge that gap. And that's a lot driven by what about operational expenditure and lumpiness of that at the time. I think it would be helpful, Colin, to indicate in future when we tell the councillors that we're drawing down a loan, what is it for? In terms of what's the driver behind it. The second thing I want to just add, councillors, is we are programming another corporate services meeting next month, where you're going to receive the half-year financial report up until end of December. And I think some of that looking forward type thing, which Councillor Ewan has raised, would be the right time would be to address it when we're receiving the half-year financial results and where we're looking and shaping up for the rest of the year and let alone out years. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else in that space? If not, we're looking for a mover and a seconder based on it is recommended that the committee resolve to 1, receive the report and note the attachment. 2, note the following activity with the LGFA. A, the $3 million LGFA commercial paper debt that matured on the 30th of January 2026 was rolled over for a further term maturing 30 April 2026.
Happy to move that.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favour?
Mike?
Carried. 9.3, non-financial performance report for the quarter to ending 31 December. Karen, welcome to the table.
Here to take you through the non-financial measures, and we've got what happens in very good across all the council activities for 85% achievement rate, which needs to be tempered by the commentary in the report that provides the more meaningful story about that rate. So you can, in the program of the report, you give the full story about achievement.
So, yeah, as the chair said, this takes our quarter report on the 31st of December, 2025. We have shared you that we've had improved input from our council teams, internal input for populating this and doing it with good operating discipline and with quality information. So that's really important. Good way to go forward. The model that we have is the 30 performance measures in the long-term plan. That's what this is shaped around. At any time, some of those are not active. They might be a yearly performance measure, or they might be every second year, etc. So across the reporting, it is difficult to say it's not apples for apples every single time. But we do try to explain that in the commentary. So in this report, 9 of those are not active for this reporting cycle. So that kind of skews your overall number. And if I just draw your attention to the table in the report itself, I can talk through it, but it does show that we have consistent performance across our 4 out of 5 activity areas. We have had we've indicated a decrease in infrastructure and resilience. That is just to recognise that we've changed the Resilient Westport program, the timing spend and factors of it. So that's been all approved and it's on channel through the council. But we just wanted in this report to show that purely doesn't manage the performance measure is to meet all timeframes that were set at the beginning of. Yeah. So, is there any questions across the room?
Yeah, just a quick query. So on page 33, councillor attendance, you've got me down as 75%. I'm not aware of missing any meetings in the new council. So could you just get back to me and let me know which one of them?
I just take the data from governance, so I will.
Thank you.
Alan,
Mira's got a comment on that.
that percentage is based over the last quarter, is that?
It's correct. So it's from October to December.
Yeah, so there was a couple of meetings at the start of October that I believe that you missed in the last triennium.
That's in the old council.
Yeah. So it's carrying over from that timeframe.
Yeah, well, I was sick at the time, but I haven't missed a meeting on this new council.
No.
So the metric, is acknowledging 3 or 4 weeks of the previous triennium is in the data as well. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No, we clearly articulated this one around showing the 9 that aren't being measured this time, as opposed to having 30 and a success rate of a far more percentage. I've got to have that tidied up to show and that we're not actually measuring those statistics because they don't be recorded.
Chair, I wonder if I can make a comment. I think this is a pleasing result. An 85% pass mark on our KPIs is showing that we're actually delivering the work that we told our communities that we would deliver. And also foreshadowing the financial half-year result, which you'll receive next month, and showing that, especially in terms of OPEX expenditure, we're actually on budget. So we're on budget and foreshadowing that for next month, that message, but we're also on delivering what we said we would deliver across our projects for our communities. And I think that's a really, really good result at the halfway mark. And I've been telling my senior leadership team and at our staff meetings, I'm really happy with the way the organisation is performing at the moment. I think all the staff are really focused on their jobs and they're doing well. And that's despite some of the external influences that are swirling around us in local government. We're staying quite focused on our good delivery and doing the right thing for our residents. Thanks.
Anything?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to say that 85% is actually an A pass. There we go.
Happy with that in the university, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
It's happy with what you've done.
Awesome. Anything else from anyone else on that? Alan?
Hate to be flying the ointment, but I'm still getting complaints about the length of time taking to get the consents processed. And I see page 42 saying that you're getting the consents through in time. I would just query that. Okay. Just note that.
I'm going to comment, thank you. Our reporting against this KPI is 100% accurate. We have checked it, it is accurate. In terms of our processing within 20 working days, etc. I think what the councillor is referring to is consent applicants taking issue when council is either issuing a section 92 for further information because their application needs further information to accompany it, or the work that the applicants have to do under section 95 of the Act, which is when they have to get written approval from neighbours or iwi or something like that. Both of those two matters, section 92 and section 95, when we issue those, the clock stops. Now, I think this has been a perennial that you brought up, councillor, that you're saying that shouldn't stop. We should just get on and process it and have them out within a couple of days. But that is not the way the law works and the statutory timeframes and the clock works. And we're very legitimate in assessing applications and requiring section 92s or section 95s. And then it's up to the applicants to go away and do that work, and the clock stops until they come back with that to a satisfactory standard. So that's the nub of the issue that's been playing out for a long time at this table in relation to the matters that have been raised on this. Thanks.
Thanks, Darren.
Could I respond, please?
Yep.
All I know is your consents have gone out from about 2 months processing out to now 12 months or years. I don't know what your excuses are, but to me it's not acceptable. These gold mining consents should be processed within a matter of weeks and get everyone working. Thank you.
Colin?
I'd just like to add that it's pretty clear from what our CEO said that we are processing applications within the required timeframes. Don't doubt that. And therefore, there isn't a delay. That is a consequence of the regional council itself. And we have to comply in assessing those applications for consents with the legitimate, with the legislative requirements that we're required to follow. So I'd just like to support what our CEO has said in this particular regard.
Anything else on that report before we move into the next one? No, the recommendation is, it is recommended the committee resolve to 1, receive the report, and 2, note the report performance for Q2 for the period ending 31 December 2025. Is that a scratch of a head or a movement?
That's a movement.
Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. All in favour?
Record me against, please.
Supported opposition, motion flies 6-1. Leah Kelly, welcome to the table. 9.4, Information Services Quarterly Report.
Thank you. Since the last report, the team's been very busy with both BAU sort of supporting business activities as well as project work. So we've made some reasonable project progress in that time. So projects that have been completed since the last report are the asset management system, which we've built as a bespoke solution in our new GIS environment. So that's now fully handed across to the team in attachments and working well. It's entering now a more BAU phase, so there will be further development down the line, but that project is done. Our GIS infrastructure, new GIS infrastructure, is now fully deployed and integrated. So all of our on-premises enterprise solution and our online public-facing maps is now fully integrated, so we can manage the data more effectively have confidence in what we're presenting, and actually present a professional look and feel that's all council branded, all of those good things. So that's completed and now in a position where we can leverage it with new thoughts. So that's quite good progress. The LiDAR data capture project has also been fully wrapped up. So that data all captured, now fully processed with us and the TAs and on the LINS open data portal as well. Other projects to note where there's been good progress is with our enterprise contract management system. So we've built a new solution there for managing contract documents as the first business function as in terms of what's been deployed there. That's made good progress and the initial training is underway at the moment. So there's more to come there. We've also replaced, as part of our network upgrade project, all of the switches around the building, including server switches and what we call edge switches in other parts of the building. We're giving so that's given us a significant bandwidth increase on the network, as well as more visibility and reliability. And the last stage of that project, which is just on pause at the moment until we free up some resource, is new Wi-Fi deployed around the building and at other locations such as Westport and Jacks Road. And the last point I wanted to make on the project front there is we included as an attachment to the report just some example screenshots from that new geo infrastructure. And so people can start to see the look and feel of that content. Moving to our operational day-to-day progress. We have, as you can see in the quarter through to the end of December, created and received more tasks that we've actually completed and got. So that represents a busy period, which we know we have from time to time. That has eased up. The indicative numbers so far for the current quarter are showing that has eased up, largely with the smaller footprint of onboarding that's going on. So we don't have quite so many new people coming into the business now. So that takes an awful lot of time off the service desk that process the majority of excuse me, those requests as well. So that I expect at the end of this quarter, we will have a catch-up period on those. The final point I was going to make in terms of a quick verbal summary is since the report was written, we have held our annual workshop with our key vendors on the GIS front, which we do each year. So that then looks at the roadmap and what's coming up and allocates the work across our team and their teams. So we've just finished that last week, and that's focusing now on new tools and infrastructure that we can deploy on our new GIS portal to decommission our old West Maps infrastructure that everybody's probably familiar with as the real public facing stuff. So that will give us some better tools and new applications there. So quite keen the next update, you should see some of that work starting to flow through.
Cool. A couple of things from me. First, I just want to acknowledge that workload. Without running the maths on it, it looks like you're averaging 40 a week through that quarter, which is someone once up into my issue to deal with, and I suspect most of them take it on. Unless there's someone forgetting a password like I might have been guilty of after the New Year break. The other point I just wanted to raise, I'm not going to act like I understand this space, the database housing. Yes, it's on hold. We're 20% of the year. We've done some work which has given us some good level of performance. Is there still a downside risk there until we close
there
it?
is. So that's a key piece of infrastructure that hosts the actual databases for all of our other core applications like Iris and the financial systems and all of those sorts of things. So that's a very old legacy piece of infrastructure. So the IT team's focus, similar to that West Maps decommissioning legacy infrastructure, is to focus on that this year to get those old pieces out. So that is still a risk in that it's an old system and it doesn't give us the level of performance that we would like. So what we've got is a new server that's now fully commissioned and sitting waiting ready for us to migrate the tools across one at a time to those. So Iris is the first cab off the rank there.
Peter?
The question on the same subject. Please reassure me that the update, this project is on hold due to resource constraints. It's not fiscal constraint because
No, it's a people on the ground constraint. So part of what we do is juggle and prioritize based on the project day to day. So even though it's an old piece of infrastructure, it is actually still doing the job. Might not be quite as we want it, but it is still working. So we've got resources that we need to do that because that's a particular skill in that database hosting environment. doing some other work. In this case, it's some iris field capture applications so that the consents and compliance team can get it out and about with less paper and more digital infrastructure. So it's just happening in fits and starts really as those other pieces of work come and go.
Nothing reassured me about the fiscal situation then.
Through the chair, I've got a question there. The virtual desktop infrastructure and the update there, just explain that on the testing. Is it to do with the fibre connections, with the fibre coming in, or what is it? Can you just elaborate on that?
So we have a limited amount of bandwidth connections at the moment coming in.
So is that coming into the dose?
So coming into the council itself, the council. So this is a server that sits in our server room here. It is a new high-spec server, and it's high-spec to deliver really power user workloads, modeling and all of that stuff. So what we need is some dedicated internet connectivity to make that run well for people that are accessing it outside the building.
So Starlink couldn't assist you?
No, it's not good or reliable enough to give us that bandwidth.
Yeah, that's a good
But what it will do is allow us, once the West Maps, this is where everything's kind of got tentacles, once the West Maps server is fully decommissioned, we can then remove some of our old internet connections and get new solutions in place that will help us with all of that bandwidth issue as well.
And you're 80% there?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else for Leah? Yep, just on that 9th of March soft approach, did you try that? Did it work?
What was that, sorry?
On page 47, there's a soft launch system.
Oh, yes. So that's our new natural hazards application. So that's now published on the new infrastructure, and the GIS team's been working with the comms teams and natural hazards team to do a soft launch on there. So we just had some of our local journalists in yesterday and in Westport as well to get an initial preview, and it is actually live on the website now, so the public can go and look. It's going. And next step is to engage with the wider staff group here and in the TAs as well. So we're just doing that sort of step-by-step process in conjunction with all of the different people that need to be involved.
Yeah, it's great step forward. If there's nothing else, we're looking for a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Chris, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Applies. Thank you, Blair. Back, Joe. 9.5, Office of the CE Quarterly Update.
Thank you. The purpose of this update is really just to give you an update on what the Office of the Chief Executive team has been up to over the last quarter. The key things that I wanted to highlight was that we've currently got the remuneration policy out for staff consultation, and we've had a couple of workshops with staff. We've got till the 20th of March for people to put in their comments, and then we will be reviewing that. And the final version, once we've finalised it, will come to council for consideration. The other things that I just wanted to mention, I wanted to acknowledge that the governance team has been doing a great job dealing with a lot of workshops as well as our usual meetings and a few additional extraordinary meetings we've been throwing in. They're also spending some time looking at the joint committees and how we can tidy up the process of setting the agendas for the joint committees, so that look forward to hopefully getting them in a more timely manner at times. Also, just acknowledging in the comm space has been really busy. So we've had about 51 media requests over the time, and we also note that the website gets significant use when we get high rainfall. So once we get a storm coming through, people know where to go to see the river levels and the rainfall levels. So that's great to see that they're using our information that comes through there. And just wanted to acknowledge the success of the 12 swimming spots media campaign just prior to Christmas. It got a lot of engagement, and actually I saw them too coming through, and it looked really good. And just connecting with Blair's work around ECM, so that means a lot for our team, particularly for Troy in the facilities space, because we've got a lot of contracts. So it's giving him a chance to review all of the different contracts we've got, and we're also looking at how we can consolidate them. So putting out the cleaning and the rubbish and those sorts of services, and how can we put a tender in to consolidate those instead of using lots of different contractors for different parts of it. So that sort of work's happening at the moment as well. And I think that's pretty much it from me.
Thank you, Joe.
On the one, is Takua being prepared and, because we've vandalised around Christmas time, isn't it?
That's a Shanti question more than me.
We'll take it offline and come back to you on that one. Peter?
Just a query on, there's been 11 workshops since the beginning of the year. January, quite a month, we don't normally have meetings, so is that accurate, or is it since February last month?
Staff workshops, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
That will be the ones that we've had here, and we've actually had quite a few. I could add them up and get you a list if you want.
But I'm just clarifying, is it from February, so it's only last month?
From January, we did do one at the end of January,
Okay, in relation to that one, because of the omission, I've brought it up a number of times here, when we make a submission to Wellington, and there's no more important submission than the one we've done in February, that it is inclusive of the map of the North Island and South Island showing the distance of the West Coast. Is that important submission? Have one. So could we have that as, I shouldn't have to ask again, I just accept that it's included on any submission that we make to expose to the bureaucrats in Wellington. They probably don't know where the West Coast is, just how long we are. And it might get a bigger message in 6 pages of words.
The key message there being the West Coast is the length of Auckland to Wellington by comparison, yeah?
We have that overlay map, that's what the purpose is. I just want to ensure that I don't have to ask again.
I can take that on board, that all submissions will be include a map of the West Coast. I'll ensure that the policy team who do a lot of submissions are aware as well.
Thank you.
I think Peter means West Coast, North Island as well, so that you can sort of.
We have an overlay.
Overlay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge the statistics you put in there around people and staff. Good to have them there. It's a perennial question of how many staff we have and what we do and all the rest of that. So must have given plain simple table form for anyone to read and take away. The other stat I thought was pretty impressive: 57.3 thousand views on the website. That's almost 2 hits per person who calls this place home. Over a quarter is pretty impressive level of traction and visitation. Anything else from anyone else on that one?
Probably 5,000 there with me when there's blood.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah. Fabulous, public information and public goodwill too, really important.
Nothing else from anyone else? Cool, and it is a simple resolution to receive the report. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Peter, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. My favourite one. Joe can stay here for the Lagoina report.
Yes, thank you. This report just provides you a summary of all of the Lagoima requests that we have had over the quarter. As you can see, we have had 20 over that, and some of them were quite complicated to note. They take quite a lot of work to find some of this information. We missed one in the deadline because it got lost in our admin space, and so we are working on improving that so that more people are aware every time a request for information comes in. The risk of what happens is if it gets sent to a person and they lose it in their emails, we lose track of it and then we miss the deadline. So that's what we're trying to control, is making sure that our team is aware of any request and that we are monitoring them better. We also, just so you know, so that did result in one complaint to the Ombudsman about us not processing their request. And also noting we did have an investigation completed. This was for a rather large Lagoima request that we proposed to charge for. The Ombudsman reviewed it and recommended that we could charge for part of it, but part of what we were going to charge for, we couldn't. So we reduced the fee and it was paid and then it was paid. Other than that, that's better.
Questions or comments from the table? Too easy. Well, this one is a far longer recommendation, so bear with me. 1, receive the report. 2, note the status of the requests for information received under the Local Government Information and Meeting Act 1987 for the period 1 October to 31 December 2025. And 3, note the summary of complaints received by the Ombudsman in regards to the employment information requests made to the West Coast Regional Council for the 1 July to 31 December 2025 period. Looking for a mover and a seconder, please. Andy, all in favour?
Aye.
Jack. We now come to that lovely time of the meeting where we will ask pretty much everybody to leave and thank those for joining us online. We will recommence the meeting after the public excluded session and provide any updates we can after that. So looking for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely agenda item 11 to 13, all inclusive.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favour? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you to those who are leaving.
Yeah.
Cool. And welcome back to those who are watching now or later on at home. Just coming back to declare the meeting closed at 11:02, and we'll move into the risk and assurance meeting shortly. Thank you very much.
So, welcome to everyone for the meeting. Special welcome to our external auditor, assigned auditor by Old New Zealand, Stuart March from Ernst & Young.
Thank you.
And feel free to participate as you see fit. I'll come up with an appropriate. Excellent. We've had an opening carrick here today, so I won't revisit that. Any apologies? It looks like we've got a full house, but so move on. Any declarations of interest on any of the items in the agenda today? None, but feel free at the start if you suddenly see something, please raise it. We have no public forums, petitions or deputations, and I'm not aware of any late items. You can confirm there's none. So confirmation of the previous minutes on page 1 of the pack, is it?
Excuse me, Graham. Back to declarations of interest on page 20, there's an item.
Yes, contingent asset. And so probably appropriate, we'll perhaps take that as a separate part of that paper, so you don't need to be absent for the whole piece, but it's probably appropriate for you to step out of that. So if we can perhaps take a note when we get to page 20 under that paper, if we can perhaps manage the conversations appropriately. Thank you for declaring that, Councillor. And we've got confirmations of the minutes on page 1. Do I have someone that's happy to move in that direction?
First, just need to those present. My mother was not. Steve Casson wasn't here. And Casson was. So they can move it up the next week.
So subject to that kind of typographical
Happy to move that.
matter. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Yeah, Chair. Any further comment or on those minutes apart from that one alteration? I'll move that we confirm the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting on 16th of December, subject to one minor typographical, are a true and correct record, so a minor change. You're happy to second that? Excellent. No further discussion. All those in favour? If any, carried. Thank you. Next item we've got is the actions list on page 6. We have a schedule there, and there's only one item sitting on that schedule. Any start comment on that?
Oh, that's the risk,
High level
the
risk
capital.
associated.
Yeah. The staff ran out of time to prepare that report for this meeting and have given an undertaking that it will definitely be here for the next meeting.
Yeah. To the next RAC.
Yeah.
I think there have probably been a number of other fish to fry in the last piece, so I'm quite happy with that to move forward. If I have any other discussion before I put the motion.
The fuel price, that risk will be increasing.
Yes, it will be, and that will be an interesting one to think about when we're doing annual plans and LTPs and impact on our CapEx. With the fuel price going up, I think it's anyone's guess how long it stays there at this stage, but you might have a comment, Daryl.
Yes, so I think councillors do receive the weekly update.
Yes.
Yes, so in your inboxes, councillors, will be some messaging that went out this week on that matter around fuel matters for all of the staff. We're watching and waiting because one of the big implications of massive fuel hike costs is cost escalation claims from contractors, which are legitimate under our 3910 contracts. At this point, we are not stopping any work or making proactive decisions not to let work at this point. But as the government has announced, the Minister of Finance yesterday is watching brief on a daily basis at the moment. And what the advice is that we're okay for now, but the moment one of those tankers gets diverted away from New Zealand when it should be arriving, or whether one of those refineries, such as in South Korea, which do our refining, go offline, then we're into full mode of alternative arrangements and making some big decisions. So that's in terms of this council's arrangements in terms of our business continuity, but also managing costs. And there's some other messaging you'll see there that went out to staff. But the second matter is that from a national perspective with civil defence, emergency lifelines, emergency services during a national emergency have first call on fuel over and above anybody else. And Claire Brown, our civil defence emergency management manager, as part of her national function as the convener of the special interest group, is doing some national work and planning all of that out with National Emergency Management Authority and other government departments. So that's the update there. It's a watching on a daily basis at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? That was a very good point to raise, and I have it noted down about the price of diesel and the impacts on the CapEx. And
New Zealand councils fight negative yesterday, I believe. Might have been the weather.
No, well, they've announced that they are cutting out a large number of flights around the peripherals. And fortunately, I personally haven't been impacted yet. I say yet.
What a relief. I think a lot of them is logistics where they're not filled.
Yeah,
so
they're trying to fill up the planes. So we have a recommendation that the committee resolve to receive the actions list and the information noted. Mover. Thank you, Chair Colin. Thank you, Alan. All those in favour? Against, if any?
Yeah.
Chair's report verbal, we're probably sort of in a very rapidly evolving, and that's where I had my note about the oil price and the impacts. There written down. We're also waiting, of course, on what the reforms are and getting some direction from ministers as to what are they really wanting us to achieve, but that's not stopping us getting on proactively and trying to be on the front edge of this and taking control as best we can with what we know and being a leader in the district. So other than that, I've got nothing particular to note. I'm not sure really whether we need a recommendation on that. It's there's nothing major in what I'm saying, so I propose, if everyone's happy, just to move on to the reports in section 9. And the first one is our employment processes report. Joe, you are.
Thank you. So this report is about our pre-screening processes when we are employing a person. We had an event that made us really look into some of our processes. It raised concerns about certain staff members. And so as a result of that, we had already made some changes to how we do our questioning on when we're employing people. But I asked the Youth and Capability Manager, Kate, to do a full review and give us recommendations on what else needs to be done. And that is the table that we have given you there. So it shows that we have improved our practice in certain areas, particularly around the standard questions and also about making sure that we have introduced the appropriate criminal checks, history checks moving forward. We've also, just as you're aware, not from a risk perspective, but we've also gotten ourselves accreditation to be able to take immigrants to hire workers from overseas. So that's positive for what we're doing. There are still some recommendations outstanding that we will need to consider and debate, and that's more around those alternative assessments that you can do with a staff member. I'm not convinced that we should be doing them for all staff members, and some people think we should. So we need some further discussion around that. But I wanted to give you this report so that you can see we have been working in this space and give you comfort that we are improving the way we do our screening.
Chair Coleman.
Thanks. So Joe, that accreditation, is that through Immigration New Zealand?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other matters to raise?
Joe, just picking up on that review more comment, I'm sure you're talking around the medical assessment piece there and which roles that sits with or doesn't sit with.
Yes, that one, and how we approach drug and alcohol testing and psychometric testing. So those sorts of assessments that we may or may not use.
I suspect all three of those, to be fair, unless you go for a policy, like an organisational wide policy around drug and alcohol, three of those could be put to roles that require them. There's certain roles that they wouldn't benefit from psychometric testing, and there's certain ones that definitely wouldn't benefit from medical assessment at the start, sort of thing.
That's the way I see it.
One question from the chair, with the current situation on the police chief mandatory for roles and holding contact with the public, if a person's got a financial authority, access to finances, authorisation ability, will we be doing those checks to ensure that they don't have any known track record of criminal offending to do with fraud, use of funds, etc.? Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
So,
yes, I can introduce that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many standard police chief through the chief?
It may or may not, but it's not sure I'd like to see that there is a check if anyone's got an authorisation ability or any access to funds particularly.
Just where it says police chief here, that would be a fire, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I was not unsure what comes up on the police check and whether you tailor them.
No, I can answer that. So the police check will yield any criminal offending whatsoever. What I think you're talking about here is what positions, when we recruit, should we police check?
Great.
And what I think you're now saying, and then I quite agree that we need to make sure that we've got our criteria set around financial positions in our that have access to funds
or
authorities. Yeah, and I think we should. We'll take that. We'll do some work on that and develop that criteria to make sure we're hitting the right positions for police checking in that area.
Unfortunately, in my regular day job, I see a wee bit of this.
I actually think we're moving towards wanting to do police checks on everyone who's working for us, not the children's worker check, but a basic check, police check. There's no people with capability.
One of those standard MOJ checks.
Yeah.
Any further comment on that particular paper? If not, we've got a recommendation that the committee resolve to receive the report. Do I have a mover in that direction? Thank you.
Happy to second that. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor. Any last minute discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, if any, carried. Quarterly whistleblower report. We have. Expected. From the table.
This is a standard report that comes to the committee every quarter, and there's been a report, and attached to it as well is a from PwC, just that is of interest. What I would do is that Chantal's been involved with this over the last period, and invite you if you've got any comments, Chantal, from your perspective.
Take the paper as read, and as Colin said, there's been no incidents or calls or hang-ups pertaining to West Coast Regional Council through the PwC whistleblower service, and open it to questions.
Chantal, I don't believe we had any in the last quarter previous to this as well. Do we know offhand when the last one we had attached to West Coast Regional Council was?
I would have to go back to PwC and ask, but I've been involved in looking at this paper since I joined council in July 2023, and there have been no instances of note to report since that time.
Thank you.
Our CEO has just whispered me that he can confirm that. And I can confirm that there's not. It is usual that this comes out as a blank report at other councils. However, we need to look at it. Global statistics which suggest that 92% of frauds are notified by tips or whistleblower lines. Now, tips might be internal where people will come to someone and actually say, or a supplier comes, or a member of the public or whatever comes. So that 92% includes us. This is only a subset. What I have seen at other councils, and I'm not sure, and I'll ask through Colin here whether there is publicity about how to make contact and spread around on notice boards around the council. There's some very good examples at other councils of a bowl of apples with one apple with a mouldy spot on it. Suggesting that you don't want to let one apple spoil the whole bowl, and how to make contact.
That's
If I may, through the chair. Sorry, Colin. Yeah. So there are posters around the offices. Exactly that. Don't let one rotten apple spoil the lot. And staff are inducted and made aware of the whistleblower policy and the service and our protected disclosure policy, And we also send out annual reminders in November to staff via an all staff email reminding them of the service.
Thank you. If I may ask you a supplementary question, are there posters in places where people could take a photo on their phone in a private situation without it being obvious to other people that they are noting down the details, such as in toilets and those types of places?
We can certainly look at putting them up in places like that, but they are in the hallways. So, I mean, people could potentially choose a quiet moment when nobody else is in the hallway to photograph that.
Yeah. Just aware at other councils that they've taken that extra step so that people don't sort of start the rumour mill running.
We can definitely look at printing out some more and putting them in the toilets or the loos or other more private spaces.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, we've got a recommendation that we resolve to receive the report and not the attachment from PwC. Do I have a move in that direction? Thank you, Councillor Birchfield. Thank you, Councillor. Seconded. Any last discussion? If not, all those in favour? Aye. Against, if any, carried. 9.3, this is the paper that Councillor Birchfield has noted a potential conflict of interest, which I'd also noted on the way through. So I propose we'll perhaps just move through the paper to discuss everything but the contingent asset Grey River Dredge, and then Councillor Birchfield can read us briefly, and then we can have a discussion on that item. Is this your paper?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The paper here is really intended to give the committee visibility of our contingencies in both our assets and our liabilities. And what we would have intended is a register to track those as we go through the year. And what this does in providing visibility and assurance to the committee that we are testing for contingencies, which also forms part of our year-end preparation that we then feed into our external auditors. And I've given some descriptions and definitions, which I'll take as read. If we go back to our June year-end last year, we identified no further contingencies, and the only two contingencies that still exist are those that were reported in our published accounts as of the 30th of June 2025. And those consist of the on the liability side, the risk pool, and I've taken the note of our financial statements to give further information as well as our contingent assets. The last two appendices is a register that we are going to maintain going forward, and that will be tabled at the committee meeting going forward. Can you take any questions?
Thank you. Dealing with the risk pool one, firstly, so that we can separate the discussion, are the new councillors aware of risk pool? You've had a induction on that, so we don't need to go back to mature, and that's one that's really out of our control, and to a large extent it's leaky buildings, which the Napier City Council case. And we will get an update. The last update I heard was that there will be no more calls on that fund by the 30th of June. Is that the latest you've heard?
Can we check on that? That's what they said in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one I'm quite familiar with my other councils there. So this is just a wind out, and we're closing a year at for all claims, and slowly the tail of this will disappear as we fund the claims. At this stage, perhaps we'll move on to the item where Councillor Birchfield has a conflict on, and we'll perhaps have a brief discussion, and maybe you'd like to just check out the cup of tea facilities for a moment.
There you go.
Perhaps it might be best for optics. The contingent asset, not a liability, whereby under an agreement in place with a company associated with Councillor Birchfield, there is a potential gain to come back to us if indeed certain conditions are met under that contract. So do you wish to clarify on any of that, or?
I'd like to make a comment here, Mr. Chairman. We have the necessary contractual legal documentation around this contingent asset with the city company. I would like to raise with councillors the possibility of writing officially to the company to get either a confirmation that the contractual agreements or the contractual conditions around this contingent asset, whether they have or have not still been met, to realise the value of the asset coming back to this council. And I think in the first instance, that's a letter that should go to the company, asking them to confirm the circumstances around that asset. and seeking council's reaction to that. And if you are minded to do that, I'd just like some guidance whether that's a letter that I sign out or the chair signs out, or the chair of the Risk and Assurance Committee signs out. Somebody, I just need some guidance there. So that's what I would like to test today. Thanks.
That does make a level of sense because we're coming up to a balance date with 3 months approximately away. No doubt our auditor will be interested on the current status of that, make sure that the item is correctly accounted for, and to get a confirmation of the status of it from their counterparty would be a sensible approach to do it, and just making sure that everyone's on the same page.
Through the chair, I would support that as well. I think it's time that we as a council had an update on that particular contingent asset. And I would suggest that it, because it's a matter that's come up in this committee, that it be the chair of this committee that signs the letter out.
I'm happy to do so if that is the wish of the committee.
Has anyone made inquiries? Has there been any change of shareholding in the company?
That's the question. That is the key issue that I want to have confirmation from the company on. Because any change of ownership or share structure, in our view, triggers that asset contingency back to us and payment of 150.
Isn't it through the chair just an internet search? You find
it should come up in a company search on the company's office.
I'm doing one right now.
Oh, thank you. There is one more.
And look forward to Chantel's advice right now, but I would still encourage councillors that an official exchange of letters with said company would still be in order.
Absolutely.
No, I totally agree with that. Is there a show of hands or make a movement? What do you want to do?
I think, does anyone think alternatively? No, there isn't, so I don't think we need a show of hands as such. We also probably need a summary of the terms of the contract, because I personally have not seen that contract myself, so I think that would be a good file note for our CFO to actually review the contract and what are the actual trigger points of that. Because it has been mentioned that a change in shareholding may trigger whether that in fact is what the contract said. We probably need advice on.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm hearing two actions here, but just for a record for the minutes. Thanks, Meryl. I'm hearing to supply the committee members here with the contractual terms of that contingent asset. And the second one that I'm hearing is for staff to draft a letter for the chair of the Risk and Assurance Committee to consider to send to the said company.
And that letter should probably confirm our understanding of the terms to staff. So I think,
all due respect to staff, should that letter be legal too?
Should probably be reviewed through legal.
Thank you. Happy to do that.
Yeah. That hopefully will then give some assurance back in the accounting process and of the audit process as to the status that contingent liability.
That contingent asset's been on the books for quite some time.
2000.
3.5 years.
Sorry.
3.5 years.
Yeah. One question through the chair. Is there any incurred costs on top of that number presented in front?
Don't know the answer to that.
Any incurring interest or any legal costs going forward?
Much one knowledge, no.
We'll check
that might be something to put into the position paper.
I think,
as you rightly say, it's close to 15 years old. So that's probably time we had a re-review.
Yeah. And the cost of any legal costs going forward.
We'll check the contract.
Chantel, you have some information for us?
Yep. So I can confirm that Birchfield Minerals Limited, their last annual return was filed on the 7th of October 2025. The shareholding does not appear to have changed. It is in the name of two people, Alan John Birchfield and Nairi Elizabeth Birchfield, and there are three directors listed, being Alan John Birchfield, Christopher Paul Birchfield, and Nairi Elizabeth Birchfield.
Thank you for that information. Senior on the screen, if you go to the shareholdings tab
Yes.
and click on the bottom right there, there's a historic shareholdings.
Noted.
And have there been any changes in recent times? Noted.
No,
So date should
the last entry on that historic data for shareholders is dated the 5th of September 2017, full legal name. And it's so full legal name, Alan John Birchfield, vacation date 5th of September 2017. However, Alan John Birchfield, it looks like it was a spelling error that was corrected.
okay. So an administrative change. Thank you.
Just one query. Was Christopher Birchfield in at the beginning, is he? That's news to me.
Maybe we just take this
Listed
offline.
as a director.
Now, thank you for that.
Can I ask a question? Excuse my ignorance, having only been involved in this matter for several months. The recovery of resource consent and marketing costs, very clear cut. We then say plus percentage of sale. Does the contract state a percentage? I don't need a percentage if it's commercially sensitive, but is there a percentage?
I think that will be commercially sensitive information and not appropriate for now, but I think it will come up in the recap note as we go back through the contract. Thank you. For that, any further comments? If not, we will. Would you go and just find Councillor Birchfield? Thank you, councillor. We're in public session, so in discussion on the terms of the contract that was and getting a better understanding, because we're now over 10 years old on the contract, and it was asked for a paper to come back just refreshing on the terms of that contract to brief everyone, as there will be councillors that have joined well down the track, just to give an understanding there and to write for the council to write formally to the company just to confirm that the understanding is correct on both sides and there have been no effective triggering events with clarity for the annual accounting process. So that was a quick summary of the discussion that was held in your absence.
Yep.
And thank you for raising that matter. It shows our conflict of interest processes are working appropriately. Any further discussion on that paper? If not, we have a recommendation. The committee resolved to receive the report, note the quarterly contingent liabilities update and establishment of the register, note the quarterly contingent asset update and establishment of the asset register. We should, if everyone's happy, note that the council will write to the impacted party on the contingent assets to confirm arrangements. And noting that we have a standard definitions and reporting requirements under Public Benefit Entity International Public Sector Accounting Standard 19. So sorry for going a little bit technical there. Do I have someone that's happy to move that slightly amended? Thank you. You're happy to amend your Chair Colin. You're happy to second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favour? Aye. Against if any? Against if any? None. Carried. So, that's the virtual drive departure. Thank you. The next paper we have is 9.4, Council's annual reports. Welcome, Stuart. At the table, we have been presented with your management letter and your quarter report on findings. The audit firm seems to name them slightly differently. So I needed to check. And I think you've got a draft audit plan as well in here. So I'll hand over to you to take us through these documents.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so first of all, we have our report to management for 2025. So this should be read in conjunction with you will recall that we, those members who were with us in October, in the committee's October meeting, we provided a closed report to our report to our audit for the 30th of June 2025, and the matters associated with the 2025 were discussed at that point in time. Then since then, we've generated this report management that goes into the details of sort of recommendations in regards to how you should continue to work on certain matters just for improvement purposes. You'll note that on page 32 and 33, go through to 35 of your agenda, we have put together a summary, and critically, a summary trying to close out as many of the 2024 matters. So there was quite a laundry list of matters raised in 2024. We've worked through those out of our 25 audit to understand whether those matters had been resolved or whether they were no longer issues council to consider. And so we've closed out a large number of those matters. And then we do have a small number of matters that we've identified during the 25 audit, or also some items carried forward because they were not resolved during the course of 25. The paper has the report has been considered by management, and they have provided for those open items appropriate responses that we've been through with management, and concur that their response is appropriate. We haven't necessarily done the field work yet to sort of see whether the actual response can be seen in action, but we will do that during the course of our interim work for 2026, which we will undertake in the next quarter. So, there's a range of matters there, and I'm happy to sort of talk. I'll take the broader document as read. But the only one sort of high needs significant improvement point, which is something that is moving forward, really is just in relation to revenue recognition around grants management and the visibility to all the various different grants arrangements, contractual arrangements that you have, particularly with central government organisations, as your capital program continues to be undertaken at a pretty high level. The level of funding that you are receiving and are somewhat dependent upon from central government is pretty critical. And so therefore managing all the associated contracts with that. And then also sort of the next, couple of tiers down in terms of where funding is coming from external parties, keeping track of all that, making sure that your sort of finance elements and your operational elements are sort of well connected on that is something that we really did pick up on in 24. Hadn't been closed out in 25, so we've got to increase the risk profile, but we know that management are actually undertaking work towards that in 26. Whether it will be fully resolved by 30th of June 26, things are being worked on. So I'm not going to go through every single point there, but before I move on to our audit plan, I have to stop and respond to any questions in regards to the responses thereon.
Any questions from committee members at this stage? Probably seen I was an auditor for many years and sat with Stuart sits. Now, in the past, it's a common issue with grants on the income side about not having systems that track dates that milestone reports need to be done and follow throughs. And it is important because it can have impacts with the funders. So I'm keen to see that high significant point addressed. The other one, as a fraud investigator, that grabs me is the manual journal entries one. And we suffer in this sector and this is not just here, but with legacy software that's been around for a long time and is incredibly expensive to replace. So we need to put some workarounds around that, and I see this at other councils as well, where there is some mechanism to show authorisation of journal entries and putting a workaround in place. The significance to someone like myself or Stuart is that a journal entry can be used by a nefarious party to cover up some inappropriate transactions or whatever, and to disguise them. So that's why having one-up review on journal entries is important. It may well be happening in an undocumented manner through reconciliations of the balance sheet and various other mechanisms to get it down so it can be actually interrogated and checked. As far as the rates income goes, this is a problem that we inherit from the TAs because we get our rating information from the TAs, 3 district councils, and it's a case that if there is errors in that, we inherit them, and we've got no realistic way to be able to validate those on a timely basis. And we did have issues with our rating strike 3 years back, was it? And you put in about a 60-point checking process in place after those to address it, a very manual process, but it all comes down to timings of rating valuations that are done in the different districts, and if they get out of sync, but also clearly identifying non-rateable land, and not a major issue here, but also Maori freehold land that can be impacted as another class. So those would be sort of my comments from the chair on those, and there's nothing here that I didn't expect to see.
Yeah, I mean, a number of the matters, I mean, the rates matters in 2024 when we were significant, but we've identified in 25. Yeah, things have got better in that space. It is a space where you basically need to hands on every year. Yeah, it's just too high risk not to. But you put processes in place to get on top of that.
Yeah, and clearly there's been an improvement from the processes that Chief Executive oversaw being put in place. So thank you to the team below that made it happen. Any other comments that my comments may have triggered? Perhaps we move on to your audit plan and etc. engagement letters. And
thank you, Chair. So on page 48 of your agenda, we have our audit plan for June 26. So that's looking at the work that we will undertake in relation to the current financial year and the year end that's forthcoming. And so in 24 and 25, valuation of your infrastructure assets was quite a concentration for us. However, you took quite a few steps in 25 to remediate many of those issues. There is an expectation that the diminished level of cost inflation since 2020, the previous valuation will require that you will not need to allow you not to undertake a full revaluation in FY26, which will be of some relief. If you're a TLA that own roads, I'd be a bit concerned in terms of oil prices and bitumen, etc., but you do not. So really our focus in the infrastructure asset spaces is turning a lot more to the actual capital projects. So you have as you know, you have a range of capital projects up and down the coast, and they're all at various different stages. And so the treatment, the incurrence of the contracting of those costs, the incurrence of those costs, the recognition of those costs, and coupled with that, coming back to one of the points we raised before, the grants associated with those capital works is a really significant part of your financial reporting, and it's also part of our audit. And so we will focus a fair bit of attention on that during the course of our work with council this year. Other areas, so grants and subsidies, obviously you receive various funding streams from outside of those capital works programs. and they are, how they are managed and recognised is important. Last year, we sort of saw a reasonably significant sum of money where you had drawn down funding from external parties, having achieved certain milestones, but you recognise that as deferred revenue because you had undertaken all the work, and it's about how much of that revenue you might draw down cash, but you may not necessarily recognise all of the revenue in the current period. So it's getting that timing right. It's pretty critical. We've just been touching on
the questions through the chair. If you go on, Stuart, just on your infrastructure asset register, is there any orphan assets in that? Have they just been brought in as assets?
Orphan assets, is that where you've adopted assets from other?
Yes.
There was an attempt to capture many of those within the valuation exercise last year. They were probably on sort of the immaterial end of the spectrum, and there's probably always on the edges some cleanup. Did you have any particular?
No. I was just asking the question. Yeah.
I can assist. If an asset is going to be brought on, i.e., an asset that we currently own onto our books, usually those assets, like the Havels Wall, like the Grave Flood Walls, are considered strategic assets, and you've got to go through a special management process as part of any plan or FP to bring those on. And we've done that in the past to bring those on and work through those and bring the right valuation. If we identify an orphan asset, say up the Grey River, which has nothing to do with us, but we know it's there, and we might record it on our asset management database, but there is a tag in the asset management database that it's not our asset, but we just make a record of it so we know that we've got a flood protection asset out there, but it's not ours. It's asset register, and hence we don't value it at all. So there's a couple of different answers there, but I'm quite happy that we're treating those measures well. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If I may, through the chair.
Certainly.
The other part to that is orphan assets are not owned by council and therefore are not part of council's asset base, which also means they are not insured by council because they are not our assets.
Is that help? Yep. Thank you.
So other areas, so rates we discussed previously in regards to report management, but rates remains a area of focus for both the legislative clients of rates, but also the collection and recognition of rates within your financial statements. And then there's a range of other areas from service performance reporting right through to your investment and debts books that you were discussing earlier in the corporate document, but also payroll costs and other sort of operational expenditure. Happy to take any sort of questions or queries, particularly if there's areas that we haven't necessarily highlighted within this document that you kind of think sort of might to councils or the community that you might want to.
It's just on page.
You said that on some basis we're going to take a review and put into specific ratepayers and subsequent collection. Is that a thing to do soon or this year? Because why I ask is I've had several constituents ask me that they've heard of a rate demand. Sometimes there's a court procedure being taken by a collection agency, and they didn't even know that they had to pay rate demand. And I just wondered if the rating, this bill collection thing needs to a little bit tidied up.
Well, our approach to rates will look at the appropriateness of the rates raised and invoiced to ratepayers, and so that is consider their land, their property valuations, their location, and the appropriateness of the rates that will be applied against their particular account. And then in terms of the collectability, and then that goes through to what's been actually invoiced to the individuals. In terms of if a ratepayer hasn't received rates or don't believe that they've received the rates invoice, theoretically that will show up relatively quickly within the aging profile of debts, of rates debts. And so, I mean, management look at the aging profile of rates debtors on a regular basis, and we will look at that as part of the year-end process to understand whether your rates debt profile is acting in an unusual manner. Similarly, we actually often see significant credits in certain rates ledgers, whereas people have been sort of paying money forward. And so it's just really understanding that position. But if a ratepayer hasn't received an invoice, then it's highly unlikely to have been paid, and it should be showing forth on the aged rates debtors.
Through the chair, I believe there's on the West Coast, there's two rates demands. There's your district rates and your regional rates. And then if you go to Canterbury, you got one rates demand, the regional, the district are all together. Nelson's the same, and a lot of other districts are the same. But quite often people will pay their district rates demand, thinking that they'll pay their rates for the year. And then the regional sort of comes in. So I think if possible, if they come together, or they were somehow combined or married up together, that would stop a lot of confusion. Now, I might be wrong, but that's where it is in other districts.
Just in response to that, we went through a series of meetings with the district councils last triennium under the previous chair in an attempt to land some shared services on that list was rates as well. And at that point in time, there wasn't an appetite to share services and combine on that matter. But of course, under any future local government reform, particularly if a single unitary council for the coast is the outcome, that would be rectified. I would also add that in a little over 18 months from now, there would be potentially a new CCO around the Three Waters infrastructure that will be invoicing their own effectively water utility bill, just like your electricity bill in relation to Three Waters invoicing, and that comes off the rating from the districts. Well, they won't rate for it anymore. It'll come from.
So then we end up with
You'll get 3 bills.
3 bills.
We'll get 3 bills, yeah.
But there is confusion. Sorry, there is confusion when people, particularly say they've got a batch here, they get emailed an account for rates, and it could be Western Rail Fuller. They'll pay it and think the rates are done, and then if they're not contacted or it's delivered to a letterbox, I think I'm all right in getting it right, Chris. And then they get a hand-delivered letter or whatever it may be, whether it's a courier or whatever, and then they get full in demand, then it ends up in a court order, which can lead to a bad credit rating, which is pretty poor form.
And the argument I had from the person that get this court order said, well, if the debt collector was able to find me, then why wasn't the person who delivered the rates to me?
So, Mr. Chairman, the first time I've heard of this. Have you passed this on to staff at all?
No, it's only just happened in the last.
So we welcome you passing that
Yeah.
on so that we can check our processes on that.
Let's do that.
Thank you.
And I'd just highlight, as I've said earlier, that we are reliant on information from the TAs. So if the TAs if there's been a name and address change or anything like that, and it hasn't come through from the TAs, then our information will be out of date, just because of separate billings.
Yeah, we need to have, we talk about that, but
yeah,
what I'm saying is the debt collecting agency was out.
Yeah. I know I've got a discussion in this area with actually this afternoon generally on understanding debt collection and processes for my own education. So I'll take these points forward into that as well.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Just confirm what Chief Executive said over shared services with regards one envelope for the rates. That went back a number of years too. It was tried then, and there was a complete reluctance from the TAs to go with that. And I also add the same thing was done with payroll, because effectively the payrolls are done by the same entity, but they're getting paid twice when they could be paid once if they were done altogether. But they didn't want to bail that either.
These matters will probably come up under the government's proposals for reform in the sector and optimisation. So I think we're just waiting for the central government to give us more of a guide as to where they want us to end up. And I know that we are well and truly on the track for with identifying opportunities.
I think the desktop exercise at the time was the savings of to ratepayer in the order of over $1 million, but it didn't fly.
Really? Crazy.
Yeah. Stuart. Look, the only other thing to note is that obviously we were working with the council on a sort of year-end timetable, and so we will principally do our year-end field work in September, having done our interim work in May, and then as we will fall in line with your committee meetings and ultimately for council adoption, which we expect to occur during either late September or early October. So we'll work to those timeframes. The other thing to note in terms of this year is that we will progress probably from the 2026 audit into working with council in regards to the 2027-37 LTP. So we would expect that will occur, a lot of work around that will occur pretty much shortly after the completion of the ARL process. That will just necessitate some ongoing planning during the course of the year.
Thank you. Any questions? Got one, probably last item I've noted down, which isn't in your current audit plan, but it could well get added, I suspect, is this reform in the local government sector and whether any of the announcements have any impact technically under the accounting standards. So I'll certainly be pretty attuned to that one, and Stuart and I have open lines of communication.
Yeah, look, we will keep a watching brief in terms of that. Usually the Office of the Auditor General is pretty good at sort of assessing anything that comes out that's new and live to determine whether there's some sort of appropriate subsequent event note disclosure or anything else that needs to be disclosed in the annual report should be. And they also look to sort of include and make sure that any reference to that in audit report is done. We do look after a number of other councils, so including regional councils, and so we'll be observing that across other entities.
Thank you, Stuart. And finally, just that our deadline for adoption within the statutory period is 31 October. So we may need to be flexible in this committee as to the progress of the audit and the accounting process as to a date in October to go through those accounts in detail and make a recommendation for council for adoption. So that meeting date may need to be a little bit flexible.
Yep. Easy enough.
Need be, but we do have a plan.
So, and look, hitting deadlines was a challenge in 23 and 24, but it was things have progressed and it was not a challenge in 25. And so I don't see any major concerns this year, including the 26 annual report. It's really important to get it out of the way so you can focus on your long-term plan, the objectives.
Excellent. Look forward to working through with EY on through this audit process, and we hopefully can all hold hands and get to the goal of a sign off on time together.
We will aspire to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last notes, comments? We have a recommendation. We resolve to receive the, it says here, there's an audit report. It's really the reports management on the 24-25 annual report, including management responses, which was dated 6th of March 2026 and is in our package. We note the findings and recommendations of the auditor. We accept the management response to those recommendations, and we note the proposed timeline focus areas of audit for 25-26, which are all set out in the document that Young has presented us. So I'm happy to move in that direction.
Excuse me, I just want a quick question.
Can I get a second to the back? You're happy to second, Councillor? Thank you, Councillor Birchfield.
Just a query on the use of stock banks as assets. Is that normal for regional councils to count this as an asset?
Where it is a flood control asset that they control and are responsible for, then unitary and regional councils do record them basically at depreciated replacement costs on their books.
Thank you.
And that lines up with the appropriate accounting standards as well, and thus the work that was done over the year to 30th of June 25, with all going down and surveying all our stock banks and getting information that enabled you to clear that matter that was in the prior year audit report.
Yeah, the database was basically updated with a full refresh of actual information, and that was shared with WSP as the valuers and the external valuations.
And I think it was some 69 kilometres of stock banks, if I recall, got resurveyed.
And counting.
Excellent. Any further comments? If not, Councillor.
Just to thank you, Warren Stewart and his team for great work they've done for us. Very much appreciated.
If there's no further discussion, we have the motion moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, if any? Carried. We now come to that moment in the meeting where we move into public excluded. The matters that will be covered are set out on pages 67 and 68 of the agenda. Do I have a mover in that direction? Yeah, Colin, thank you. Councillor Peter. Any discussion? Thank you. We're now back in public meeting. During the public excluded, we dealt with the matters that were detailed on the agenda, and we have noted that all papers involved in item 13.5 regarding correspondence on the audit proposal and engagement letter with our auditors appointed by the Office of the Auditor General can be released, as they do not contain any matters that are commercially sensitive or continue to meet the requirements for it to be in public excluded. Having said that, I can declare that the meeting is closed at 1:37 p.m. Thank you everyone for your attendance.
Yeah.